What a moment we are in. Everyone wants to know when we're going to get the economy started up again. Just how many lives we're willing to surrender in the process. And we all understand the dilemma. The sooner we open up America, the sooner we can get back to our jobs and make money. But the more likely we'll spread COVID-19, overwhelming hospitals and killing more people. I actually think this is a false choice. It may be true that every 1% rise in unemployment leads to a corresponding 1% rise in suicides. And also, we know that first-time job hunters seeking employment during an economic turndown, they live shorter lives. So an extended freeze of the economy could shorten the lifespan of 6.4 million Americans entering the job market by an average of about 2 years. But this may actually say less about the downturn than it does about our dangerously absolute dependence on traditional employment for basic sustenance. In reality, I think the sooner and more completely we restore this old economy where figures like that are true, the more we simply recreate the conditions that got us sick in the first place. Those are the conditions that rendered us incapable of mounting an effective defense against the virus at all. The economy that we're committed to restoring, it's no more the victim of the COVID-19 crisis than it is the cause. That's why we have to stop asking, when will things get back to normal? They won't. We don't want them to. There is no going back, right? That's the good news. If we approach this moment of pause mindfully, then the post-COVID economy we create together could turn out to be a whole lot more resilient than the old one. Right? Beyond exposing the brittle nature of global supply chains and top-down monetary policy and a vanquished domestic manufacturing sector, the COVID crisis is also unleashing a powerful drive by local and network communities to rebuild business from the bottom up. The mechanisms so many of us are now inventing and retrieving under duress, they might just survive after the crisis is over. And they're what's going to augur this new era of distributed commerce. Bailing out Main Street somehow through banks, that's what Obama tried after the recession of 2007. Force banks to take money so they lend it to corporations who are then supposed to use it to build businesses and create jobs. Right? Jobs nobody really enjoys, making crap that the rest of us then have to be convinced by advertisers to buy. These aren't solutions. They're just ways of restoring the original problem. They shore up the lending industries and the dominance of the corporate sector over small businesses. It's not the way Joe's Pizzeria gets saved. It's the way Joe ends up working for a branch of Domino's for less money and with less security. What's working instead are these myriad strategies and lateral mechanisms for mutual aid and value exchange. It's the medical supplies being listed on Google Docs and spreadsheets. It's in Taiwan, the crude but functional public service platforms that are being developed by hackers working in concert with government. Right? These innovations, they're digital in spirit, but they're local in their execution. In some ways, it's this temporary paralysis of globally scaled financial institutions that's creating the need and the room, the opportunity for these alternatives to just-in-time global supply chains to be experimented with, for people to gain faith in them and then actually use them. These are bottom-up, balanced economic solutions. They respect people and places as much as they do the capitalists who are lending the money in the first place, right? This is neighborhood barter and local currencies, distributed open source apps. It's the donut economic model now being implemented in Amsterdam. These practices are the ones we talk about that are optimized not for the extraction of capital and the growth of stock, but for the velocity of money, like the circulation of blood through an organism. We don't want to build back the old economy. That's what increases fragility. That's what made us so weak in the first place. We can't depend on government to implement any of these reforms from the top down anyway. Right? They can pour money in, but it's not going to do anything. The refusal of the administration to step up and take charge in this crisis in some ways is a tough love lesson to local communities that we are on our own, and in some ways we always have been, and we better start finding solutions and building prosperity from the bottom up. Look to people like Assemblyman Ron Kim or Mayor John Reed of Fairfax, California, or New York City Council member Brad Lander. These are the kind of people who are looking at how do we keep Uber and Airbnb and General Foods and Amazon out and make room for bottom-up small businesses, family enterprises? How do we educate constituents why it matters where you buy from, where you work for? How do we support credit unions, barter exchanges, local currencies? We may be in this ourselves, but we are in it together. The mantra for a post-COVID economy has to be make everyone rich. The scorched earth practices of Walmart, Amazon, Uber, all they succeed in doing is squeezing their employees, their suppliers, and their partners dry. Everyone becomes one paycheck or purchase order away from bankruptcy. That's Trump's art of the deal. Force people into unprofitable deals until they just perish. What's that for? Companies should instead, we should all try to make everyone in their marketplace as rich and prosperous as possible. That shouldn't be counterintuitive. The more wealth there is in a business's ecosystem, the better the business does. More sustainably, the more other people want to work with you. For their part, small businesses devastated by COVID and looking for ways to dig out from debt or bankruptcy, they have to consider alternatives to crippling bank loans. They can move instead toward any one of the new models of employee ownership, from employee stock ownership plans to full platform cooperatives. During the last financial crisis, the workers of New Era Windows, they occupied their factory, which was being shuttered by the parent company. And then in a spontaneous act of solidarity, Chicago police refused to arrest them. Eventually, the workers purchased the company. Some of them did it through sweat equity, and now it runs as a co-op. And they are the ones who are less likely to consider themselves as employees expendable when the next crisis hits. That's the way an economy is supposed to work. Just like the circulatory system of a living being, the money needs to be kept moving. Widespread prosperity is not some form of charity or welfare, but the surest sign of a thriving, resilient economy. Unfortunately, the economy so many people seem so desperate to return to, that one is based on the opposite principles. And that dream of infinite exponential growth, it only ends in apocalypse or escape to Mars. And we already know the wealthiest among us are preparing for both. Now, the restoration of local, bottom-up production and commerce based in mutual prosperity, it's also the chance for the Trump and the Bernie supporters to realize they're on the same side. Freed of top-down political ideologies and frameworks, we can get down to the actual work of growing food, patching roofs, healing wounds, and teaching arithmetic. Local resilience need not be left or right. It's just a way to return to health.